Hello, I'm Ben Jones, editor of BRM. I'm here at the Great Central Railway at Rothley today to meet Bachmann's David Haarhaus and ask him about Bachmann's 25th anniversary and also to get a sneak preview of its plans for 2014. David, thanks for meeting us here today.
Hi, you're very welcome, Ben. It's always nice to be here back at the Great Central Railway here in Rothley, one of the stations that we made a model of in both Branch Line and Grand Parish. Yeah, pleasure.
This year marks the 25th anniversary of Bachmann Europe. Could you give us a brief history of the company?
Well, back in 1989, CADA asked Graham Hubbard to set up Bachmann Europe Industries, as it was then. And today, Bachmann Europe remains a wholly owned subsidiary of CADA. Since its formation in 1989, we've launched a branch line range and we've acquired a continental brand, Lilliput, for HO, HOE, and now N. And in the year 2000, we acquired the N-scale range and brand of Grand Parish. The relationship today remains as it was then. CADA is a large Chinese factory with numerous interests in plastic injection. And ideally suited to making the products we market for them in Europe. And we're very happy with the relationship, today as we were back then.
Looking back, what would you regard as Bachmann's finest achievements of the last 25 years?
25 years is an awful long time to try and list all our what I would consider to be an achievement over that time scale. Probably a long job. I think obviously introduction of new technology and processes and effects, paint effects, and enhancing models from where they were probably at the start of our inception, sort of 1989 to where they are now. I suppose it's best described as toy trains were something for children and younger boys to play with. And that's probably quite true up until sort of maybe the 80s. But I think what Bachmann's biggest achievement would be to maybe change the perception from toy trains to making nicely detailed models that adult collectors could enjoy more rather than just play trains in our operator railway. And that was always available, but presumably if you could build kits or had the skill and time to scratch build and such like. Whereas now, I think with Branch Line's arrival, you could buy a pretty well detailed model at a reasonable price and start a finely accurate collection.
And what have been your personal highlights?
I joined the company in the year 2000. Again, that seems like a long time ago, it probably was. And I can think of numerous models during that time which I'm really sort of pleased to see come to market from a personal perspective. I had to have one of those, I wanted one of those. But in terms of the company, I'd have to say the Blue Pullman, both in N and AA. It was a huge project with little actual physical resource available and you can't go and measure one. To bring that product to market, probably a lot of people thought it may be impossible to bring it to market to the standard that I think we did. I think it was a great achievement, and in fact we've actually now taken custody of two original chairs from the Blue Pullman train, which hopefully we're going to restore and put on display at our head office in Barwell.
What have been the biggest challenges that Bachmann's had to face?
I think going back to 1989, a new kid on the block and trying to establish a brand, Branch Line, as it just was when we first started. Trying to establish Branch Line against in a niche market, against such a dominant household name. That's the challenge today, of course. The sort of perception of model trains and model railways is always going to be hard for us to bring our brand to the fore. But we see it as a challenge and we quite enjoy it. And then following on from that, of course, we've sort of taken over the management of the custodianship of the Grand Parish brand and tried to develop that further to where it is today. And we're comfortable with where we are in our markets at the moment, and the establishment of a new brand against such a dominant household name within a niche area, it's not consumer electronics or something with big volume, that was always going to be a challenge, but I'd like to think that we've done a reasonable job with it.
Do you have any plans to expand into other scales, such as TT or O gauge?
I think as long as anything is commercially viable, Bachmann will always look at it. We've sort of consolidated our ranges in Branch Line and Farish this year. We're happy with the sort of volume we've got in each sector and category, sort of steam locos and modern rolling stock and and wagons and such like. So we're sort of consolidating that, and I'm pleased to say that we are going to start to invest now in a new scale for Bachmann Europe PLC, which is 009, which is not too alien to us because obviously it's a 00 model on N-scale track, so we're sort of combining both of our skill sets on that. But we're very excited about it. Regarding future, anything else on from 009, again, as long as it's commercially viable and our Collectors Club members and the consumers saying we really like a Bachmann model of this, we'll always listen to that.
Are you seeing much growth in Engage?
I think our range is growing. I think there's more N-scale products available now than there probably ready to run N-scale product than there probably has ever been. And we'd like to think that's to a higher standard than there's ever been available before of a UK outline. I think the problem with N-scale is perception of value. A1 Pacific in N-scale is just as hard to construct, if not harder, to construct than a 001. It's miniaturisation. I think any other industry, be it watches or anything else where you miniaturise and make things smaller or thinner, you usually pay a higher premium for that. Model railway seems to sort of go against that, and so far that people think it should be a lot cheaper because it's a lot smaller. So that's a hurdle that we have to overcome as probably an industry actually, the future of N-scale. I think N-scale's got a great future. It's always talked about, isn't it? You can do so much in a small space, which you can. But I think we're seeing some layouts now in magazines like BRM where actually people are doing quite a lot in a large space and showing that if you've got a large space, don't just use N-scale in small spaces. You can have a beautiful landscape in a larger space. And now you can actually purchase the wagons and rolling stock and locos to populate the layout. I think N-scale has got a bright future, but as an industry we probably just need to get behind it a little bit more.
You don't sell direct to the public from your website. Why is that?
I think Bachmann understands the importance of high street retailers to recruit new people into the hobby. I think it's essential that you keep it in the public eye. Families and children or anyone walking on a high street has got the chance to look into the front of a model store and maybe think about what's in that window and if they want to enter that store and find out more information about it. The stores are ideally placed to do that. They've got people inside the stores who understand the manager or the owner. They can talk to them and find out about, and he can give them advice on what to buy, what not to buy, and what scale to choose, all this kind of thing. So it keeps it in the public eye. I think families and such like probably wouldn't wander across the internet and come across a model railway website, or they wouldn't get the benefit of the physical model in front of them, which you would do with actually seeing something in a high street store. So Bachmann always supports the retailer, and to do that we feel it's probably a bit unfair to be in competition with them.
How do you go about choosing the subjects for your models?
Obviously as a company we get a lot of feedback. We see the polls and the wish list that are published in magazines like BRM, we see the feedback on our own web. When we attend exhibitions we get a lot of feedback across the counter, which is nice. We've also got our own Collectors Club, who are a great source of inspiration and ideas. They're constantly telling us what they like Bachmann to do in the future, what they've liked about what we've already done and what things we should introduce and what features or whatnot. So the Collectors Club obviously play a key role in that. And then it sort of comes, we get all these ideas together and we just have an open and frank discussion amongst a sort of committee of 6, 7 of us probably sit around and sort of bring something else to the party, so marketing and sales and engineering, and try and sort of thrash out a list of viable items from which we then sort of go away from that and say, right, these ones we'd like to make, what sort of research materials available to us and how commercially viable is it, even after you paid for research and stuff like that, is it still commercially viable? So the actual genesis of the ideas comes from some of the people inside the building, inside the company, but a lot of it is from consumer feedback, which we really like, and especially from our Collectors Club members.
Once you've chosen a subject, how do you go about researching it?
Well, once something's been deemed to be commercially viable, the long process of R&D starts. That's probably it's a process that's probably too long to explain on this DVD today. But our Bachmann Times magazine, the magazine of Bachmann Collectors Club, is just soon to start a feature. A regular feature that will actually written by our former R&D manager, Merle Evans, along with our art room manager, Dennis Taylor. And they're going to be explaining in a great deal of detail what I suppose you could call a Bachmann process. What brings an item from an idea right actually through to delivery to a store. And that is a long and exhaustive process, and it's going to obviously take quite some time, quite a few issues of the Bachmann Times to explain that thoroughly. So if people want to really know, then the next Bachmann Times has got all the answers.
If you could choose one subject for a model, a personal favourite, what would it be?
Well, I'm really lucky because since I joined in the year 2000, many of the models that I'd like to have seen in a branch line packet or ground patch packet actually have been made. So if there was, I do like the large specifics. I think you get such a great sense of power from them. When you're stood on a platform as one pulls out with sort of 10 or 15 on the back, whatever, you can feel it coming up through your feet, through the platform is great. Or whether you see them sort of plunging through Loon Gorge or something like that. It's fantastic to see them, and probably something like the Standard Turbo Motive would be one that I'd like to see. Something a bit different, but nonetheless immensely powerful loco. And then again, the other side of things, the everyday run-of-the-mill commuter services. Coming from London, it's always been a sort of soft spot for me. Though the sort of trains I grew up with, Network South East, I remember, the glory days of Network South East and such like. So, yeah, Wessex Electric, something like that, that'd be probably quite good. I remember that. That was a high point, really, wasn't it, of Network South East? This new train using older coaches with reconstituted traction motors under there. I thought it was great. Yeah, it's good. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
How do you see the model railway industry in Britain developing over the next few years?
I think N-scale needs to come to the fore. I've already sort of said about, I think that's got a great future, and I'd like to really see that come through. It's got everything going for it: size, detail, operational sort of diversity. It's a great scale. I really like to see that come through. I'm hopefully just seeing that start now. Regarding everything else, in terms of, I think there's still too much wiring on layouts. I think it's probably enough to put some people off starting a sort of to make their own layout. So DCC's helped, there's no doubt about that, with certain section switches and such like that now, no longer required. But there still seems to be an awful amount of wiring, so if we come up with some sort of operating system or enhancements to what we currently have that would just try and remove some of those barriers and make it even more accessible for more people, then that's where I'd like to see it go.
So after 25 years, what's enabled Bachmann to survive and thrive in this industry?
I think probably the people that we've got working with us. We're a very solid, stable team, and everybody brings something different to that team. There's people who are specialised in marketing, engineering, accounting, whatever. But there's such a nucleus of people at Bachmann who are actually rail enthusiasts, and we all spent hours and hours spent on the end of platforms and in the freezing rain waiting for this one loco to arrive. And so. And that's been over such a large period of time. If I think about Graham and Merle, they were sort of transporting long before I was even thought of. They probably hate me for saying that, but they were. And, so they've got a lot of experience of those days, the glory days, sort of nationalisation period. I mean, we've got sort of another genre of people we work with who, were sort of like the dawn of the diesels and such like, and then, sort of myself from sort of late 70s, early 80s coming forward. And then now, we've got younger sort of members of staff joining us who are right up in the modern day. So we've always got a good pool of sort of real railway knowledge amongst us, which is obviously, I think, vital to our success, along with, the disciplines of warehousing and accounting and such like.
Thanks, David. That was really interesting.
You're very welcome, Ben.
We'll be back with David in a moment for a look at Bachmann's 2014 range, but first over to Rothley's beautifully preserved signal box for a quick look around. Most people are conscious of the difficulties now being faced by manufacturers with regards to production in China. Can you explain what these difficulties, the effects these difficulties are having on you?
Well, I think that the economic and social changes that have taken place in China over the last 20 or 30 years are sort of well documented. One of the biggest problems that we've got in China at the moment is the increase in labour charges. The population has acquired more wealth, and their expectation has increased. They now value their own time more. They value their leisure time, they value their working time more. So any manufacturer in China has to pay a lot more for that time. The government's also instigated a minimum wage policy, which increases every year. So there's always going to be an increase in cost every year regarding labour. The one-child policy in China has meant that China now faces an ageing population. This means that our production lines and our factories are finding it harder to find what would be deemed younger people. And these are the kind of people that we really do need to make the labour-intensive products that we do. They can glue and fix and screw these things together much quicker than I could.
Right.
With an ageing population, it means our production lines now have older people, sort of 30 plus. This means it probably takes a little bit more time to make a product than it once did. And this, although it's not a huge problem, but it just means that time costs more money, which means again the cost of products inevitably goes up.
Do you see that situation improving in China?
I think stabilisation is all we can hope for. This year we've consciously made a massive effort at CADA to calculate all of the prices effectively and thoroughly, and I think we've gone through some pain this year. I think I will see that situation stabilise rather than improve. Because if you're asking the situation to improve, you're actually probably asking for someone not to reap the benefits of their hard endeavours. You're trying to suppress a standard of living. A few years ago, raw materials, the escalation in price of raw materials was probably the larger problem. Copper, zinc alloys, brass, etc. That was driving the price higher than we'd seen in previous times. That situation is now stabilised. Cost of fuel is still an issue. The cost of shipping and transportation has no doubt increased. Our factories obviously burn an amount of fuel to generate electricity or whatever. So that's still an issue, but the overwhelming increase in cost, the overwhelming factor behind these price increases is without doubt the increase in labour charge.
Deliveries over the last couple of years have been a little bit sporadic. What can Bachmann do to guarantee a steady supply of new models?
Bachmann Europe PLC in England, one thing we can do is make sure that our research packages are delivered to the factory in a timely manner according to their production schedule. Same for artwork. We can do as much as we can to improve the approval process, so streamline that where we can, make sure that the samples received from the factory are turned around and any questions or issues answered in a quick and timely manner. CADA have gone through a certain amount of restructuring this last 12 months. Some factories have relocated and closed. We're confident they're now coming to the end of that process, and they've now got a firm foundation to move on from. Very similar to where they were probably 10-15 years ago actually. Some of the unsteady supply we've witnessed over the last 12 months, we think that will improve.
Have you considered moving production elsewhere in the Far East, to the Philippines or Vietnam for instance?
We've got an immense amount of machinery at the factories for plastic injection, trimming, sonic welding, spraying, tampering. That would all take a considerable amount of time to relocate. It's the trained labour, the skilled labour, that we would struggle to quickly bring up to speed in another country. And also the cost of it as well. I mean, while we are saying quite rightly that labour costs are increasing in China, the amount of labour and time involved with making our products still makes China the most feasible option at this time.
Would it be feasible to move production to the UK or Europe?
The minimum wage in the UK is around £6.40 an hour. If we think it takes an hour, probably in terms of labour terms, to make something as relatively simple as a pillbox brake van, from the time that you put the tools onto the machine, run the machine, test it, produce the body shell, clear the flash, take it away for spraying, tampering, construction, we're looking at about an hour per item. So your cost price for something like that from the factory would be something like £6.40. Would probably inevitably lend itself to an RRP over £40 probably for just a pillbox brake van. I think with the huge amount of trained and skilled labour required to make these intricate products. The practicalities of moving production from the Far East to the UK at this stage will far outweigh any commercial advantage. In products like this, we look at something like an A1. This is a branch line A1, broken down into constituent parts. And as you can see, there's a huge amount of individual components required to make one of these models, both metal and plastic. When you think each one of these parts, there's 334 parts here. It's not so much the actual parts or the components that take which bear the huge cost of the model. It's the labour involved in using that part to glue it to this piece, to screw it to that piece, whatever. So with something like this, to produce this in the UK or Europe, it's not an attractive option at this stage.
And many of those parts have intricate printing and painting as well, so that
So
adds
like the
extra
back
cost.
head, like the back head on that, you know, all of that has to be. So this would have come off of a plastic injection tool. It would have then been the flash would have been trimmed off of it. It would have been sprayed, and in this one, it looks like it's been tampoed as well. So just to produce this one part, there's 3 or 4 or 5 human operations, and this is why something like this does have a retail price of £150, because there are literally 334 parts that you have to construct. I don't know about you, Ben, but it would take me some time to put that together and then do it on another 999 pieces.
Recent price increases have been widely reported. Why are modellers paying so much more now for models than they were just a couple of months ago?
Well, I think now would be a good opportunity to have a look at one of our products that suffered a larger price increases, which is the branch line auto baluster. This product has now got a retail price of $49.95, largely due to the terrific amount of labour content. As you can see here, there's 185 components that go into making an auto baluster. All of these components have some human element. There's very little automation in any of these products. The bogey parts, the separate buffers, that's all quite familiar to people, but it's the amount of small etched parts, the amount of wire which has to be bent, cut, formed to shape, sprayed, then glued onto the bodies and the body shells and the chassis and such like. This is what's taking the greater amount of production costs, the time it's taken to manufacture these small intricate parts that the modelers want. They want to make them.
And I didn't realise that some of these parts that I thought were plastic are actually brass as well, so they're presumably more expensive.
Well, brass is obviously going to be more expensive as a material to purchase than plastic. But even then, if you take a small part such as this is a brass component that's had to be formed, cut to the right shape, then sprayed, and then tampoed again. And with something like that, that must be at least 2 tampo operations on there to produce that writing there, which you can actually read. Again, if you take the body shell itself, although that would be one component coming from the actual machine, it's the human element involved in picking out all of these individual decorations and the tampo processes. So with so many colours, so many operations, it takes a large amount of time. The black writing, for example, on the length of the body shell here, you couldn't do that just with one pad. So each one of these has to be done, albeit in the same colour, it has to be done as a separate operation. And that's what's contributing to the increase in costs more than anything else.
So why have some models increased by a greater margin than others?
The factories, all factories, not just ours, all factories are really going into some great detail with calculating the labour content. The more labour content you have, the higher the price. And what they've discovered in this process, that if you compare certain similar products on branch line coaches, for example, if you take a Mark 1, which is one of our older models, the labour content on that is comparatively less than it is for one of our newer ones, which is a Mark 2. The Mark 1, so a slightly older design, it has around 58 components to it. This is a Mark 1 SK. That has 58 components, whereas a comparative Mark 2A coach in branch line actually has 77. It has separate roof vents, which are individual pieces that have to be sprayed and glued. whereas the Mark 1 has integrated roof vents. And it's those kind of differences to improve the quality of the product which are now actually costing the extra money.
Are there any new production processes or technologies coming on the scene that could reduce costs?
In a limited way, I'm sure going forward automation will play some part, particularly perhaps in the spraying of body shells into their primary colour. For instance, the green on the Mark 1 coach there, again automation could play some part in doing that. Digital print also going forward will provide certain opportunities. Whether it will actually save costs, I'm not sure, but it will certainly enable us to reproduce more detailed and varied liveries, particularly ones where you have a graduated tint. But the actual construction of these items, the bringing together of plastic and metal parts, screwing together, gluing together, I don't think that will be something that lends itself particularly well to an automated process. It's not like a pick and place machine that would be perhaps making a printed circuit board for a phone or a camera such like. With our products, it'd be very difficult to include a great amount of automation.
Would Bachmann consider following the Hornby Railroad example and producing models that are more basic with simpler decoration but cost less?
It's perfectly possible for Bachmann to produce a product to any standard that the market wants. It really is up for the market to tell us what it is they want. But personally speaking, I know everyone at Bachmann's the same, we really are more about making the best possible products, the highest possible standard we can, for the best price we can.
So you're saying we've been spoiled? We've been getting a Rolls-Royce product for sort of scooter money?
I think so. I think Western society in general has, and everything, be it consumer electronics or fashions or anything. We've got very used to paying a very reasonable price for some very, very good products. The increase and the changes in the social climate in China mean that going forward, that's probably going to be less likely to happen.
Can you see the UK market paying more to get a more advanced product with extra features?
I think time will tell. I think with this year's sort of transition to a stable price point, a stable retail price for existing products, we will soon learn from that how much more the consumer's willing to spend on their hobby. I think that there are things we could incorporate, there's features we could incorporate which are over and above where we currently are. And in an ideal world, I'd love to see those appear on branch line and Grand Farage models. Whether the consumer is accepting of the price that would come at, I think remains to be seen. But I think looking to the future, I think it will be quite positive to try and push technology and push features forward once again. Yeah.
So the issue is that at the moment we're paying more to get the same?
Yeah, exactly. This year, prices have increased. We are paying a little bit more for the same models we purchased last year. And I think we just need to ensure that that is accepted by the hobbyist. As of course they do in their everyday lives, the cost of petrol, the cost of milk, cost of everything has increased. Proportionally, model railways, whether it has or not, probably someone can tell me, but we certainly are going to be paying a little bit more for what we got used to in the previous years. Once it's established and we have a definitive decision from the consumer and the hobbyist whether they are willing to accept that price increase, it will then give us a good indicator whether we should invest again and try and push the boundaries even higher to produce an even higher specification model with extra features.
Thanks, David. So let's turn now to look at Bachmann's plans for the next year. Right, David, can we talk about some of the plans that Bachmann's got for 2014 and 2015?
Yeah, of course. I mean, as an update to where we are with the 2014 range, obviously we went to the Spring Fair earlier this year and announced some new gift packs and train sets. We've got some of the box art now. This is final box art for the gift packs, train packs that we're doing. All of these are themed to a specific train or event. So we've got a commemorative World War I gift pack featuring an ambulance train used to bring back casualties from the front lines to the hospitals in the UK. Got a Shakespeare Express, which is obviously a very famous train, preserved train, obviously around the Midlands area, featuring Reed Aston Hall for the first time, I think, with a small tender. And then we've got the famous film, The Railway Children. That's obviously something that many people have seen throughout the generations. It's been remade, it's gone onto the stage on tour. So we're producing a lovely gift pack with that, which features the train itself and also a actual scale model of Oakworth Station from the Keighley-Worth Valley Railway, where the original film was certainly shot. So all of these films are all of these gift sets are augmented by some additional extras. So we've got the station, we've got a Stratford-upon-Avon bus, VR, Bristol VR up in top for the Shakespeare Express. We've got some sort of figures of World War I figures for the ambulance train.
So will there be any in Graham Farish for N-Scale?
We've got similar packs, similar offering in N-Scale, featuring the same bespoke artwork for the packaging which you see here, very similar styles. We've got the Longwood Military Railway set, which is a WD locomotive in the Longwood Military Blue, which looks very, very nice. First time we produced that in N-Scale. We've got a Cumbrian Mountain Express, which is the Duchess and the Mark I coaches, sort of classic 1980s rail tour train. We're operating in and out of Carnforth and such like, and that's really great. And then we've got a landship train, which is a 4F, featuring some World War I tanks on some flatbed wagons, sort of taking munitions and equipment to the front line.
What other new developments are there for 2014 and 2015?
One of the largest developments that goes across both scales, N and OO, is a new dynamics control system. We've enjoyed a great amount of success with dynamics. It's been really great for us. A lot of people have got into DCC. It's been an entry-level system for some people, or it's been a more advanced level for people who really did start with very easy command. And we're looking to take that a little bit further now. There's a new product called Dynamics Ultima, which is coming through. This combines the original Dynamics control system with the best features from the Pro box, which was a supplementary sort of add-on which you bolt onto Dynamics. That's all now going to come in one system, plus a few extra features, ability to boost the power up for larger scales, USB connection for computer interfacing. So we think that's going to be a good product. It's still not going to be so complicated or so advanced that it's hard to use, but it will just satisfy the need from our now mature, I should say, digital users to help them progress to the next level.
Okay, moving on to locomotives and rolling stock. What can we expect?
Well, this is the front cover of the new Graham Farish 2014 catalogue. We've still got a lot of products outstanding from the 2013 range. We're soon going to see the Duchess arriving in stores. We've got the Merchant Navy progressing nicely. The Class 31 isn't going to be far away now either. The 25 is also progressing along behind the 31. So with so much new tooling and new models coming through, we thought it prudent to perhaps just try and consolidate a little bit with this catalogue. New tooling wise, we are talking limited it to the birdcage stock. We had a very good reception to the birdcage stock in OO, and so we feel it's appropriate, because we're also making the N class, to produce the birdcage stock in N scale. There's going to be a whole host of new liveries and existing items, some of the 47s coming through with new liveries, more liveries on things like the 101s and such like. So there'll be lots of new liveries, but in terms of new tooling, it's the birdcage stock for N scale.
And what about accessories? Anything new planned?
Accessories, well, just regarding things like Scenecraft, what we always try and do is take the very best product, the most popular product from OO, and reduce that in size to N scale. So things like the very popular things like static caravans, a lot of the low relief items, they will come down from OO into M. We've got a new range of figurines and station figures and such like coming through in both scales, so that will also augment the N scale range. The difference is this year we've actually got a standalone N scale item. It's not very often we produce a building or an accessory in N scale alone. Well, this year we're going to be producing essentially a low relief coal-fired power station. We produce a lot of models to service power stations on the loco side and on the wagon side. So we thought it'd be quite a nice idea to actually give those wagons a setting. So things like the cooling towers and the turbine halls and such like, they're all going to be boiler rooms. They'll probably be low relief because they'll just be, they're going to be large enough as it is, but they'll be massive. But then things like the unloading area and some of the conveying equipment to move the coal from there into the turbine halls and such like, that will be a fully fledged sort of a standalone item, so you can run your loco around it.
Moving on to Double O then, what exciting new developments can we expect in the next year?
This is a copy of our 2014 branch line catalogue. This is a special 25th anniversary catalogue, and as part of our 25th anniversary we're very excited to announce that we're actually entering a new scale for us. This year will see us announce a 009 product for the first time. Building off what we already know in our Lilliput range, where we have HOE, which is an HO model on N-scale track, we'll be producing a 00 scale model on N-scale track under the auspices of narrow gauge. We've had lots of requests through the years for narrow gauge products, and we think the time is now right for Bachmann to enter that market. We're going to launch the Baldwin 460 tank engine, commonly known as a trench engine, it seems. This saw action in First World War, supporting the front lines with munitions and material, and also evacuating casualties away from the front line to the hospitals elsewhere. We're announcing that with some wagons to supplement that, which would be an open wagon and a closed wagon. So you can form a train prototypical of the First World War. Many of these items saw action after the war in private use, industrial use, most famously Nocturne Railway, Ashover Railway and the Welsh Highland Railway had a number of these items operating in revenue or just for industrial use, and we'll be producing a range of products to depict those actual examples.
Will there be any narrow gauge themed accessories to match that?
Initially, we'll be producing a narrow gauge station. Although this isn't based on anything particular to the Baldwin tank engine or the wagons we're producing, it's known as quite a famous station. It's a scale model of Woody Bay for Linton and Barnstable, and that will be our initial Seacraft item for this year.
Will there be any new standard gauge items in the branch line range?
Yeah, there certainly will. We're still waiting for the Brighton Atlantic to come through to us, things like E4 1F. But regarding new tooling, we've announcing the Class 90 electric in 00. Lots of liveries available. It's something I remember being tested in the late 80s up and down the West Coast main line, so I'm really pleased to see that one come through. And that'll sit very well with our previously announced Mark II F coaching stock, so that makes some sense, and that should be a nicely featured, nicely detailed item. I suppose also to complement that, we are announcing the FFA FGA Freightliner flats. Something that's been really missing from our range, I think, is that transitional period from where we went from sort of con flats to intermodals. So by introducing that, we're going to hopefully be able to cover a large sort of operating era, large time scale of operation, and that will feature, as I say, both the FFA and FGA versions, so people can construct a scale length train to put behind their Class 9C or their 85 or pair 37s, whatever.
Will there be containers to go on there as well?
Yeah, we're looking at different container design styles to supplement what we already have available in the range. On things like re-liveries and such like, we've got 37s coming through in Colas livery, coaching stock sees HST barrier wagons, further development of our departmental range. That's been very well received, and we're going to sort of carry on with that theme as well. So while there is not a vast amount of new tooling compared to previous years, we've still got a lot of previously announced and items to come through. So we've tried to consolidate, make a sensible range plan, joined up range plan to complement what we've already got announced and what's already in the range. While there's not a vast amount of new tooling, there is plenty of interest on reruns and new liveries applied to older models. DB Schenker 08 will be a nice one. Pre-grouping, we'll see more releases on the LMI tank engine. We've got the Brighton Atlantic progressing as well, birdcage stock still to come. With Seacraft, there's a raft of new announcements as always in low relief and fully fledged buildings. One of the most important ones there, again, as part of a joined up range plan, I guess. We've got the 90, we've got the FFA, we've got the FGA, the 85 we've already got. So we thought we'd have a go at announcing and producing a 00 scale container crane for a container terminal. And that's well advanced, and hopefully we'll be seeing some samples of that very soon. Finally, we've got the post-war commuter suburban station. part of the sort of modular system that they used after the war to replace those stations that were deemed to be derelict or even destroyed. This one's actually based on the southern station, Forest Hill, in fact. So that will really sort of finish off the Syncraft range for this year.
Thanks, David.
Very welcome, Ben.
Plenty to look forward to there, but that's it from Rothley. Thanks to Bachmann and everyone at the Great Central Railway, and thanks to you for watching.